Hey there, and welcome to Your Worth, Your Way, the podcast that's all about helping you understand that you are worthy of prioritizing your joy without feeling selfish or guilty. I'm Debbie Lucas, the Joy Alchemist, and each week I'll be bringing you honest, heartfelt conversations with incredible guests, coaches, thought leaders, and soulful humans who'll share their stories and insights on self-worth, confidence, personal growth, and how to create a life that feels authentically yours. This isn't about quick fixes or cookie cutter advice. It's about real talk, practical takeaways, and plenty of soulful inspiration to help you live life your way. So grab your favorite cuppa and let's dive into today's episode. So today I am joined by the incredible Anne-Louise Harbutt, an intuitive spiritual channel and energy activator, working with driven female coaches and change makers to align and activate their energetic frequency for their next level identity, impact, and income. We're diving into Anne-Louise's experience of realizing that she didn't love or value herself and how she overcame going from an outwardly chatty, sociable London girl to finding herself and the universe, feeling as though she had come home. I'm so excited for you to hear Anne-Louise's journey and insights on living life her way. And so much of your journey, Anne-Louise, resonates with my journey. So I'm really excited to get stuck into that. So welcome. How are you today?
Good. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on the podcast today.
You're very welcome. So tell us, what is lighting you up at the moment? What's exciting you?
Oh, that's such a great question. So I am excited by a couple of things. One is that I have created a masterclass, which is around activating your energy
Mhm.
and your frequency, because I wanted something that would help people to understand energy and understand how they can bring that into their life, into their business, to help them feel more confident. So I've created that so that it's available to people to have for free so that people can understand their energy, because I know the power it can have. I know the difference that it can make. And also, I'm very lit up by my clients. I absolutely love what I do and the transformation that they have. And I think when you work with people and you can see the change on their face, you can see the difference it makes. You have those testimonials that say, because of the work we did, I'm now like this. I now believe in myself. I'm now taking these steps that I never would have been brave enough to take before. So those sort of things really, really light me up.
Yeah. And isn't it amazing that we can get to do the work that we love that lights us up, but see that difference and transformation it makes for the people that we work with?
Absolutely. And I remember being, when I first came into the coaching world, I was looking for personal development myself. And I had never experienced anything like that before. I'd been in corporate and, as you said in the intro, like a London girl. And I remember this feeling of not being fulfilled, and then becoming the coachee, and receiving that transformation and feeling the difference it made to me, and then getting to experience that as the coach and the difference it makes. Like as you say, when you're so fulfilled and lit up by what you do, it makes you, or it made me realize just how little fulfillment I had when I was working.
Absolutely. And I think it's not until we kind of have someone to kind of hold the mirror up and kind of take the blinkers off that we really start to see things, because we get so stuck into life and the noise and just the daily, I don't like using the word slog, but that daily kind of grind of, you've got your routines and you just kind of keep going. And before you realize it, a year has passed, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and you're like, well, what else is going on here? So I really like the term that you used, coming home to yourself, because that's exactly the term that I used last November when I kind of had this major like light bulb moment. It was like, my mind just opened up. So tell us a little bit about what that experience was for you. And then, you've kind of shared a little bit about how you've got to where you are just now, but can you tell us that journey that you went through from that chatty, sociable London girl to coming home to yourself?
Yeah, of course. So I was okay. My job was okay. I had fun. I was working with people that I liked. But I think it's one of those things that you don't realize what true happiness and fulfillment feels like until you, as you say, you have this kind of opening up and this awakening. And I remember listening to something, I don't think it was a podcast because this was quite a few years ago now, but listening to someone speaking and saying she was happily married. She had two great kids, but there was something missing. There was this lack of fulfillment, happiness, just there was something. And I was like, I'm kind of resonating with what you're saying. And I had just started at that point learning about the universe. I had listened to this, I had the DVD of The Secret, which is how a lot of people start. I was learning about spirituality. I had a few experiences of feeling my own energy was shifting. I'd have experiences of I'd be lying in bed and my arms would move voluntarily, and things that they weren't scary, although it sounds a bit strange talking about it. It just felt like I was going through some sort of awakening, and it really got me curious. And the more I learned about spirituality and the more I learned about the universe, I was like, this makes so much sense to me. Like this, I understand that there's something greater than ourselves, and I understand that we get to choose a lot more than we're really giving ourselves credit for. Where I felt like I was in this tick box, married, kids, job, ticking all of those things, and why am I not connected to that happiness that society says that you're going to feel when you've done these things? And what the universe and spirituality did was like, okay, so there's more to this, there's more to this life, and this sense of fulfillment and purpose, I feel, is something that is going to come from the universe. So I worked with the lady that had done that original interview and conversation that I resonated with.
Wow.
I got in touch with her and I did one of her masterminds, and really over a period of 9 months. But we got to the crux of that I didn't have this relationship with myself, that I didn't love myself, that I didn't feel connected to myself, and there was a huge disconnect from the person the outside world saw, or I allowed to see, and how I really felt inside. But I didn't know that. I was kind of just happily going through life as a lot of people do, and it wasn't till I worked with this coach and she said, there's no connection, you don't love yourself, you're not going to be truly happy and fulfilled and confident and all the things you want to be unless you get to know who you really are. And I remember it was quite an emotional moment. I felt like I'd been sort of split in two, because someone was seeing me very real, very raw for the first time, and also this sense of, but who do I be now? Like I've been this sort of chatty, outgoing, confident person, and I was, but there was this sort of lack of self-worth and self-belief, and with who I really was. So it became a journey of finding her and uncovering her, and then realizing what a difference that made to how I felt about myself, how I was as a mum and as a wife, and realizing that this made a massive difference to my life in so many ways, and I wanted to then help other women to have the same or a similar experience.
Brilliant. Okay. And so you work with female coaches predominantly. Is that kind of how you started your business, or did that evolve over time?
Yeah, so really I started working with women that were running their own business. Most of them were coaches. I discovered that I was able to have this intuitive ability to pick up on their emotions, to pick up on their limiting beliefs. So I start asking these questions that I felt like someone was guiding me to ask. And then if they answered, I would get, if it was, that was the thing that was blocking them or limiting them, or was something that we needed to explore, I would get a response, a physical response in my body. So I was like, well, this is not something I'd ever had before. And I realized that I was channeling in guidance and messages from the universe, which I really didn't want to tell anyone. From having been a corporate London girl, the last thing I wanted to do was go out on social media and tell the world that I was channeling in messages. But the universe had other ideas and kept nudging me and nudging me until I did. So it really evolved from there. And I think the reason that I work mostly with coaches is because that's the world that I'm in. And I think what I certainly felt when I first started being a coach is it's you. It's not just a business. You are giving your all your emotions. You're visible to an extent that I've never experienced before. And that would bring up a lot of limiting beliefs and lack and worthiness, and I'm not good enough, and who am I to? And so I felt this calling, I guess, to help women to say, you are more than enough. Yes, you want to shine your light. Yes, the world needs you and all the amazingness that you're going to bring, because that feeling of purpose, that sense of, this is what I'm here to do. I'm being drawn by something which is so powerful, to to give up a corporate job or to start this business or to go out in the world and share this. I wanted to make sure that that message did get out in the world. And therefore, if there was something stopping that happening and they couldn't get to that reason or belief or limit, I would intuitively be able to help them to do that.
I love that so much. And I love that, I think nearly every single guest I've interviewed so far has used some of their own personal experience and journey. And that's now how they are helping other women. And I think, the bit that you were talking about, you kind of said, that you didn't really kind of know yourself, you didn't really truly love or value yourself. And that's so massive. And I think unless, this is the bit where the worth comes in for me, unless you can do that truly and know yourself and feel worthy of showing up and doing what you're doing, your gifts are being lost in the world, isn't it? And I think I love that there's so many of us, and that's what I'm doing through this podcast. It's just amplifying the voices, amplifying the work that we're doing, because we're all, in the spiritual development, personal development world, we're all ultimately drawn to helping others and healing the collective, for want of a better phrase. And so that's so important. So was there a specific moment, and what shifted for you on your journey of that kind of self-acceptance? Can you remember like a day, not necessarily a time, but a specific day, or was it a gradual process for you?
Well, there was a specific moment with the realization when that coach turned around to me and said, "You don't love yourself." And it was in a room. There was only 5 or 6 of us, I think, but it did feel like suddenly the world I opened up. Actually, I don't know about the world. I opened up, and it was suddenly this moment of, okay, I don't know what to do with this right now. And I think I cried for about 3 hours. Just the emotion, the relief, the just everything coming out, and having that moment of like I said, who do I be now? Like what how does life look from here on in now I've had this realization? So there was that defining moment, but it was over time, and I actually don't believe that the self-worth journey ever ends in many ways, because I've done this work now for 12, well, it's 12 years since that moment. And as you grow and you evolve, as we should, because when we're evolving and growing, we're feeling that expansion. We don't want to stay stagnant. We're going to meet new levels of limit and fear and self-belief and all of those things. So in many ways, it's forever evolving for me. And I'm a spiritual being, yes, but I'm living a human existence. So there are days when like the sun is shining like today, and you feel really great and you feel really lively and brilliant. And then there are other days when I wake up and my human self doesn't feel great and doesn't feel very worthy and doesn't feel very loved. And so it is an ongoing mindset and love and compassion for yourself. So I think in answer to your question, it's like the moment, there is that moment when I had the realization, but it is forever, ever evolving.
Oh, definitely. And I was having this conversation with another guest a little while ago, and it was almost like a kind of realization, a moment she had in the podcast, and she's a somatic coach, and she was talking about like to kind of level up, you need to heal a level down. Because and if you think about that, if the building's tall, you need really strong, solid foundations. The taller the tree, the deeper the roots grow. And so, you can never keep growing unless you're kind of working on those foundations. And for me, the foundation is ultimately self-worth, with all the other bits that go alongside that. So, that's really critical. One of the other things that you spoke about was like, at the start when you can like, you were this chatty, sociable person, and that was part of who you were, like, that realization of like, well, who am I now? And that really is coming down to authenticity. But, it's so hard to kind of clear the noise and all the labels that we have given to ourselves, and society has given to us, and our families have given to us, to kind of, shift all of that away and really tap into like, and I kind of actually, I put a social media post up today actually, like, who were you before you were born? If we're, because we're in the spiritual realm, so we, I think we're of the same belief that, we were a soul that came to earth in this lifetime, but that we've had other lifetimes as well. So who is that soul before you were born, before you had a name, before you turned the age that you are now, before you had the job, before you became the mother, the friend, the daughter, all the kind of things. So, So I don't know if you can answer that because it is quite a big question. So who are you? Who is Anne-Louise when she's not the label of Anne-Louise?
Really interesting. It is a big question. You're absolutely right. I think from that feeling of being a soul that, like as you say, I agree with you. We're a soul that comes into this human experience. And I remember having an astrology reading with an amazing lady that I know, and she said, "You've been teaching this around energy and spirituality and self-worth for lifetimes. Like you have been teaching this forever." So I suppose on that soul level,
Yes.
that's who I am, is here to teach that message, to serve in this lifetime. It's women to be that version of themselves which is so lit up, so alive, so joyful, so in their self-worth, so in their purpose, that space that just feels the most expansive ever. And to be able to understand that how women aren't feeling that way, and then how to
Yeah.
help them to step into that. And also, I believe that I'm here as part of the ascension of the planet. So the vibration, the dimension of the planet is rising, and I've been told on a number of occasions by people who channel that I'm, as a lot of us are, a part of that ascension. So I think, that that's not Anne-Louise, that's not mum,
Yeah.
wife, daughter. That's my soul has come into this lifetime on this earth at this time in order to raise the energy and vibration of individuals, and in doing so as the collective we're raising
Yeah.
the energy and vibration of the planet.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true what you're saying, and like again, like I've had astrology readings and like really gone into detail into my natal chart, and similar to me, like I would when I suppose it is hard to define who you are, but like I kind of like to speak about it in terms of my soul's purpose. It's similar to what you were saying there. Like, it's all my charts, my human design, everything is pointing to I'm here to do this very work that we're having this conversation of on this podcast, and using my voice to kind of, as I said, amplify the collective work, my work, all the healing that we're doing together. And I think, tapping into your soul's purpose and your true purpose of your on earth is a whole other, probably a whole entire podcast. But I think that is one of the key ways that you can really tap into who am I, why am I here? And again, that's when you need to let go of all those labels and all the noise and all the expectations and all the beliefs. And that's years worth of work. I think, I've had this conversation with other guests where, we're sitting here saying, this is where we're at right now, but this wasn't an overnight process. This was years of energetic work, years of shifting the beliefs, years of, really going into the shadows and really, pulling all those bits out and integrating them. For me, it's not about like dealing with anger and then like, I can put that out the door. It's no longer, it's a part of me, and how I can use that. And then that kind of taps into the energy, isn't it? Because emotions are energy in motion. We're energetic beings. Everything around us is energy. And I think, the bit you were talking about around, some days you like the sun shining, we're naturally energized, that it kind of activates our circadian rhythms. But there's other days where we maybe don't feel so much, in that kind of mode. And I've really started learning to tap into like my intuition and my body, and like what is my energy like today, and if I need to rest, then that's okay. And I think that's where the guilt comes in. And if rest is going to bring me joy, if rest is going to bring me peace today, then I can do that unapologetically now. But even 2 or 3 years ago, that was a very foreign concept to me.
Absolutely. That guilt, especially when you've worked in corporate and you have to be at a desk and you have to be at an office between like 8:30 and 6:30 or whatever your time is. We're not naturally, or I certainly wasn't naturally able to, as you say, I knew my body needed to rest, or I knew that my body needed to go for a walk or go and have a bath or go and do some journaling or meditate. And I knew that if I did those things, I would be a higher vibration myself. I would be a better coach for my clients. I'd be a better mum, a better wife. But I often would shut that down because no, it's work time. I'm at my desk. This is what I should be doing. And I would probably spend time trying to create or think of something, and I'd be there for another hour or two. If I'd taken that bath or walk or meditation, I would have probably come back with so many inspired ideas. But it takes time, I think, to give ourselves, it's like a permission piece,
Yes.
giving ourselves permission to rest when we want to rest. Now, it doesn't mean, the caveat for that, I guess, is that it doesn't mean that then if we're scared of something or fearful of something and we need to put ourselves out there, because I've been there as well, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to rest because this isn't the right time. Truth is that actually you need to get over yourself, Anne-Louise, put your big girl pants on and go live or post that post or whatever it is. So it isn't about using that as a reason to not be your bold, bright self. But also, if you feel yourself, I would say, if you say the word should, or I should be at my desk, or I should be doing this, yep, as we all do, then it's not your desire, because you never say I should and then the rest of that sentence is about your desire. If you really want something, if you really believe in something, you're like, I am going to do this, I'm excited to do this, I'm like, you can't, but you don't use the word should. So the minute you're saying should, ask yourself, are you doing that because society says so, or the online space says so, or because your upbringing says so that you should be? And who are you shoulding? Like, who are you doing that for? Because actually, that word is something. If I ever say that word, then I thought, okay, I should be at my desk. Well, why should I be at my desk? Why can't I go for that walk that I feel like I need to get out and get some fresh air? But it is a permission piece. It is a learning a new way of living, really, and a new habit, especially if you've been in corporate like we have for years and years and years.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of things that you said there, like, I mean, for those who are just listening on the audio, like I was smiling and nodding, and I've got a big cheesy grin on my face because it absolutely resonates. I think there's a few things. So first of all, yeah, sometimes your soul's purpose and what you're here to do is to be in corporate, and that's okay. This isn't about, you and I have stepped out of those kind of corporate roles, but it's whatever brings you joy. And it's then about, as you say, finding ways within your day that you can still manage your energy, and where you are able to kind of manage that. So whether it is, I talk a lot about kind of like small joyful moments, whether it is just, you may be sitting at your desk looking busy, but just sit with your cup of tea or your coffee or whatever you're having, feel the heat, just tap into your senses, smell it, taste it, and just kind of like take a moment, even just rolling your neck and your shoulders or glancing out the window at the trees or whatever you can see, and just kind of those little moments is what can kind of keep your energy going, and where possible, manage that. But the other bit that you were talking about there, oh, I've lost my train of thought and I should have written it down. Yeah, so the bit about the shoulds, that was one of the big light bulb moments for me on this journey. And it was a post that I saw, and it was like, if you find yourself saying, I should, stop yourself and go, do I need to? Because sometimes you need to go and do the dishes because else you're not going to have clean plates to eat off. You need to do the laundry because you're not going to have clean clothes to wear. Or do I want to? And if the answer to both of those are no, then there is no should. Sometimes like that, you need to go to a meeting when you're in corporate. If you're at your job, you can't just not opt out of the meeting. But if it's no to that, if you don't need to, if you don't want to, then there's no should. And that was such a critical part for me in that journey of kind of like prioritizing myself and my joy.
That was a huge for me. Prioritizing myself
Yeah.
was life changing
Yeah.
for me, because it was always about everybody else. It was always about my kids when they were little. It was obviously, you have, young kids need your support. Mine are now 18 and nearly 21, so they've got their own lives. But it was about them. It was about the house. It was about the job. I was trying to juggle everybody else, and nobody was really getting what they needed, and I certainly wasn't getting what I needed. And I remember the coach saying, you need to prioritize yourself. And I was like, I just can't. I mean, when do I have the time? And I didn't have the time I thought,
Yeah.
but I started with those small things. So like you were saying, those little micro moments of looking at the trees and just taking a breath and taking your shoulders down. I would have those micro moments of, if I felt like I just wanted a minute to myself, I would take it. If somebody said, could they put some time in my diary? If I was already doing something, I would say, I can't do it then, but I can do it
Yeah.
now. Or if I had a feeling that I needed to go for a walk, and I'd say to my husband, can you watch the kids? I just need to go outside. Things that I would never have done. And I started just making these small changes of putting myself first. And what happened was not what I was expecting, which was I suddenly had so much more to give to those that I loved. It was quite, I mean, I don't use miraculous lightly.
Yeah.
It did feel like that because suddenly the kids were getting more of me. It felt like I had more time, I had more energy, I had just had more of me to give because it's the cliche of fill your cup first. And I get it. I got it logically. I understood why you put yourself first, but I couldn't because I was too busy and too much and I'm responsible for everyone and everything and you just don't understand and I can't find the time. And that's how I felt. And it wasn't just like one day I decided I was going to put myself first and then I became the priority. It was learning. It was like learning a new skill of just little things. When it's like, hang on a minute, I'm putting myself second here. No, what do I need in this situation? And I would choose whether I would put myself first or not. So
Yeah.
it wasn't that I always put myself first. It wasn't that everybody else missed out. So as I said, it's quite the opposite. But I decided in that moment what was best for me. And sometimes best for me would be putting the other person first. Sometimes best for me would be putting myself
Okay.
first. And it was a game changer in my relationships. I felt like I had more time. I felt like I was doing less but getting more done. I felt healthier. I felt more energized because I was looking after me. And it wasn't a self-care piece, as in I was
Yeah.
diet had changed or things like that. It was just in my head. I was like, actually, do you know what? I'm flipping important in this life here because it's my life, and I'm the most important person in this life, in this life of my life. And once I started really owning that, something shifted in me, and it meant that I was no longer feeling that I was missing out or lacking or that I was always chasing. There was this constant chasing my tail, and like there was never enough anything, never enough time, never enough money, never enough. There was just this constant never enough. And suddenly when I went, no, actually, I'm going to be the most important person here. And suddenly that meant that everybody else got more of me. And I was able to make decisions in a very different way because it was suddenly like, actually, is this decision I want to make? Yeah, it is. And I was good with that. There was no regret or annoyance or frustration because actually I really wanted to do this, but I'm doing this for someone else, even though I love that person. But it didn't stop me feeling that human frustration. So I would prioritize yourself is one of the biggest things that I would say to clients. And I know how hard it is. And I know it feels like you don't have enough time to do it. But start making those small changes and it will make such a difference.
Well, like speaking of energy, like what you've just said has totally activated me. Like my whole body was fizzing there. It's like, oh yes, this is what it's all about. And I think my next question was going to be like, how did you let go of the guilt? How did you overcome the guilt? But I think you've answered it because, and feel free to come in. That is those small moments, and it is just about like it's something that's maybe not going to feel like the world's ending because your unconscious mind is going to feel really scared and triggered by that. But it's picking those small moments, and I'm very much a believer of like the more you do it, the more it will expand, and if it feels good energetically, if it feels good in your body, that will expand, and you'll have more of that. And I think the bit like you were saying about if you've got a choice and it is a prioritizing myself or prioritizing someone else, that is the bit about tapping into your intuition and feeling into which one feels more expansive or which one feels more constricting and heavy, because that definitely is a yardstick. Sometimes like even if you're low energy, you just have to go and pick your sick child up from school or whatever. There's sometimes you kind of you do just need to prioritize that and do that. But where you can and where you do have that possibility is to kind of lean into that. So was there anything else that helped you kind of overcome the guilt and feeling selfish for doing that?
I mean, you're right. That feeling in your body, I feel that if it feels good and it feels expansive, then you know that that's the right decision. And I guess feeling the guilt,
Mhm,
like
mhm. Yeah,
going through that initial, because this is different. This is going to
yeah,
be a different way of living for you. If you've someone who has put everybody else first forever and has been felt responsible for everyone and everything and juggled everything for everybody else, you're going to feel guilty and you're going to feel this sense of uncomfortableness because it's not familiar.
yeah,
It's like when you have a pair of old trainers that you've been wearing for years and there's got a hole in, leaks the water in, then you know you need to get a new pair. But when you put the new pair on, they feel flipping uncomfortable. And you want the old pair back, even though you know that they're no good for purpose anymore. But it takes some time for those new trainers to feel, you know, more relaxed and feel like the old trainers. And it's a bit like that. It's a bit like you get used to having that feeling of I do feel guilty because actually this is very new for me. But if you can focus on the longer term, if you can focus on the fact that if I can move through this guilt, I know that the people that I love are going to get more from me, and I'm going to get more from me. And like you said, that expansive feeling, like if it feels good to you, trust that it's going to be really good for everybody else, rather than allowing your human mind to come in and say, oh, but if I do that, that person's going to miss out, or this is going to be wrong, or what, and try and let that sort of to the back of your mind, and trust that if it feels that expansive and it feels good and intuitively it feels right, there is a reason for that. So an example might be if and I'm this isn't an actual example, this isn't a made up example, but say for example with my son's 18, so um if I said to him, look, I'm not going to be around to cook dinner or do that. Um, he's capable of cooking his own dinner. He doesn't do it very often. He doesn't like doing it, but he's capable of it. And if I put myself first in that situation, say, no, I'm not going to cook dinner tonight because I'm going to go out with my friends
Yeah.
and I'm going to have some girly time, and you're going to have to cook your own dinner. The gift to him is the experience to become more confident in cooking his meal. So if you think about the guilt piece, I could go out and feel really guilty that my poor 18-year-old son, and I'm being sarcastic in this, poor 18-year-old son has got to cook his own dinner. Or I can say, actually, if I'm trusting this is expansive, it feels right for me to go out. I'm going to feel good because I've had some
Yeah.
great time with the girls. I'm going to feel like I've had my cup fill from my friends. He is going to maybe disgruntledly make his own dinner, but he's going to have more experience and learning
Yeah.
and be more confident. And it's another step to him being an adult when he leaves home and does that. So don't think that necessarily it's they're missing out on something, because sometimes when you take away that support, and I'm not saying my son, for
Yeah.
example, but if you
Yeah.
take away support from somebody who you have been nurturing for some time, they stand on their own 2 feet.
Mhm.
And that's the biggest blessing for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's such a beautiful example. And like again, it's like I'm big on the reframes and like that, that was such a good reframe. And like actually, like he gains that independence, that confidence as you spoke about. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I'm going to shift lanes just ever so slightly into joy. We've spoken about it throughout the podcast, but it is a big focus for me as the joy alchemist. So what's one way that you intentionally create joy in your everyday life? And what advice would you give to somebody who is struggling to prioritize happiness, who's maybe at the start of the journey where we were maybe, 4, 5, 10 years ago? If you can share some insights around that.
So a lot of my work really is first thing in the morning when I don't want to call it work, but finding that joy is how I start my day, because that influences the day. So I will journal, I do a gratitude journal.
Mhm.
So I write what I'm grateful for the day that's gone, and then I write a gratitude journal for the day ahead. So I would have put in my journal today, I'm very grateful for the amazing conversation that Debbie and I have. So it's like it's already done. So I have the gratitude. Thank you for the guidance that you give me. Thank you for everything that I share today, because it isn't scripted at all. So whatever I share, you're going to guide me to do so. So that puts me in a place. Gratitude is a great thing to do if you want to be in that joy. And I meditate in the mornings. I do some yoga stretches. I do some things that are going to raise my energy. So I also set my energy activating for the day. And I think about what I focus on in the day. So when I'm not feeling the joy, which of course we're human and there are times when we don't, then I will think of something that makes me feel joyful, or like you said about your cup of tea, sometimes that first cup of tea in the morning, or you treat yourself to a nicer tea bag or something, and it's just that the smell or whatever it is, and it's just that you're grateful for this, and thinking about the things that you're grateful for, thinking about the things that bring you joy, even if you're in a place, and we've all had times where it's been very challenging and darker times, and thinking about, but what do I have that brings me joy? Because what you focus on, you get more of. So the more focus you put on those things, even if it's only feels like one thing when you're having a tough time. So if you're at the beginning of that journey, is to think about what you're focusing on, is to think about where your intention
Yeah.
is going. Nature's a very good way as well. Nature's vibration is very high, so if you can get outside, even bare feet on the ground, really connecting with the earth is another good way. And the meditation for me is connection to source. But I think from that first time, I think it was where I put my attention, because I put a lot of my focus on what I didn't have, or the lack, or where I was lacking. I wasn't good enough, wasn't a good enough mum, wasn't a good enough wife, wasn't a good enough employee, whatever, everything was coming from a place of not enoughness. So now I focus on what is abundant and what is beautiful and what brings me joy. And sometimes that's harder than others. Like I say, what we said, sometimes you wake up and the sun's shining and you're feeling really joyful. But you're living a human existence, and it's okay to have those times when the emotions aren't where you want them to be. I think I tried to avoid them for a
Yeah.
lot of years. I tried to just push them down and pretend they weren't really happening, because I'm going to put a smile on my face and I'm going to be happy. But sometimes leaning into those emotions and feeling them, I'm going, okay, I feel guilty today because I've put myself first, or don't feel great today. Then allowing those emotions to come through and go, actually, but what could I focus on?
Mhm.
What could I think about? Could I go make myself a nice cup of tea and just sit just for a minute and just regroup and remind myself of what I do have rather than what I don't.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing your story and insights, Anne-Louise. There's so many golden nuggets. Like my head was going ping, ping, ping as you were talking. But I think one thing that stood out for me, and I think will stand out really for my audience and my listeners as a key takeaway, is that like if you're prioritizing yourself and you feel like you're letting somebody else down, is actually look at the gift that you're giving them and the blessing. And yeah, sometimes you need to dig deep for that, but there will be some benefit to them, and it might not be immediate, it might be later on, but that was such a good way to show how you can let go of the guilt and how you can kind of really step into what brings you joy. So I'm sure that my listeners will want to find out more about you and what you do. So what's the best place for people to find you or learn more about your work?
So if they want to come to the website,
Mhm.
and that's annelouiseharbutt.com, or Instagram is the best place to message me, and I am Anne Louise on there, so they can find me on there.
Brilliant. So I'll put all the links in the show notes and we'll share that on the social media as well. So you'll be able to find Anne-Louise easily.
Brilliant. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. So thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Your Worth Your Way. I know you'll be walking away feeling inspired and ready to embrace your worth and prioritize your joy. If you love this episode, I'd be so grateful if you could leave a review or share it with someone who needs a little bit of inspiration and encouragement today. And don't forget to hit that follow button so you never miss another episode. And you can connect with me, find out more about the podcast, my guests, and all their links, and what I do at debbielucas.me/links. And if you don't already, go over and follow me on your favorite social media platform. I'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the conversation over there. And until next time, remember that you are worthy exactly as you are.